Good evening. My name is Amelia Amaro, and I am the Executive Director of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of Grimsby, Lincoln, and West Lincoln Chambers of Commerce, thank you all so much for being here this evening. Our provincially elected officials create policies that not only have far-reaching implications across Canada and the world, but also have a direct impact on the economic prosperity of our community. As your local chambers of commerce, we recognize that we have a role to play in helping the citizens of West Niagara make informed decisions as to who will speak on behalf of our businesses, families, and communities. Your local Chamber of Commerce is committed to being the voice of member businesses to all levels of government. We actively work to identify issues, government policies affecting chamber members, connect our members with government resources, and help to build relationships with representatives of local, regional, provincial, and federal governments. It is our privilege as part of the mandate to be able to facilitate tonight's provincial all candidates night. It is no small undertaking to run for elected office, and I would like to extend my thanks to each and every one of our candidates here today for putting their names forward and being willing to take on this important task. In order to ask as many questions as possible this evening, we've broken our agenda into a few sections. First, our moderator will introduce our candidates, and they will have an opportunity to provide opening remarks. And the cutoff for accepting questions here tonight is at the end of their candidate opening remarks. So please get your questions at the table right outside the auditorium if you still have one. At the end of the evening, we'll have an informal meet and greet with our candidates. If there were questions that you had that weren't brought forward, or you'd like to explore and answer further, here is your opportunity to talk with them. And again, by heading outside at their respective tables right outside the auditorium. We are excited to share that tonight's All Candidates event is being live streamed to the My Generation YouTube channel. If you know somebody who couldn't be here this evening and really would appreciate watching, you can head over to either Grimsby, Lincoln, or West Lincoln's Instagram and grab the link to send them tonight. We've got a lot to cover this evening, and I want to make sure that we stay on schedule. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Samuel Miele. Samuel is the visionary co-founder of the Future Voters Summit, the first ever initiative born from the belief that Canada's future, particularly Gen Z, must be built on solutions, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of policy. In addition to leading the Future Voters Summit, Samuel is the host of the television show My Generation. He engages in deep, thought-provoking conversations with policy experts, politicians, industry leaders, and other influential figures. Through these efforts, Samuel is reshaping how political issues are discussed, and he's inspiring a movement toward a more constructive, solution-oriented future. So without further ado, let's begin.
Okay, save the applause for the candidates, please. I'm not that special. But Amelia, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm genuinely honored to be doing this today. I didn't think I'd be here years ago, but a little bit of understanding in policy and politics and trying to keep a solutions-focused mindset has led me here. And I'm so excited to be doing this with you four. Thank you very much. My name is Samuel Miele, and like Amelia mentioned, I'm the host of My Generation on the News Forum, as well as the co-chair of the Future Voters Summit. And I will be moderating this debate tonight. So I enjoy cutting people off. So I'm just kidding. Don't worry. But I'd like to introduce all of the candidates tonight. The candidates have been seated alphabetically by last name from left to right. Your left, not mine. Starting at the left side, we have Dave Augustyn, New Democratic Party of Ontario, Shauna Boyle, Liberal Party of Ontario, Mark Harrison, Green Party of Ontario, and Sam Oosterhoff, Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario as well. Invitations, might I add, were extended to all registered candidates, including Aaron Albano, New Blue of Ontario, Aaron Allison, Ontario Party, Stefano's Karatopis, Ontario Libertarian Party, and Jim Torma, Populist Party of Ontario, who either did not respond or chose not to participate. Now, few ground rules. Like most debates, we have to keep this courteous. So, with that being said, candidates, you are requested to be respectful of one another. And this forum is being provided by the West Niagara Chambers of Commerce for the benefits of our community. And might I add, we greatly appreciate you all for being here. Can we give them a round of applause for coming? Thank you. Now, audience members are similarly asked. Please no heckling from the audience, no callouts or interruptions. That's just not proper. If we want to submit a question for consideration, please do so. There is a table at the back that you can submit your question. You will have until candidate introductions are complete to submit that. Please keep any applause to a minimum, as we have a tight agenda. We want to hear from as much of the candidates as possible. And might I add, at the conclusion of the debate, we have asked all of the candidates to be available in the hall at their respective tables for any questions you may have additionally. Answers will be timed, and we've explained this to the candidates. The lights will turn yellow when there's 15 seconds remaining, and red when they must stop. I've been told to keep them at a proper 2 minutes for their introductions. With that being said, we'll begin with the candidate introductions. So, we'll start alphabetically by last name from left to right. Each candidate, you'll be given 2 minutes for your opening remarks. With that being said, we'll start with Dave Augustyn.
Thanks very much, Samuel, and the Chamber. Thanks to fellow candidates, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for being here and watching online. We think about Ontario, and we think Ontario should be a place of opportunity, a place where you can afford a home, where you can get world-class health care, where your kids can receive the right supports at school, where you can find a job and run a small business, where you can age in place, and where life's basics are affordable. But after 7 years of a PC government, we know that it's not that way. And we think about the scandals and costly deals that Doug Ford has had, the Greenbelt giveaway, the Therme Spa scandal, the beer store boondoggle, and the overpriced Starlink shaft. Here in Niagara, we see the impact of a government that's lost its way, that has neglected things that matter most to our community. The PC candidate's record and the government's record, ER wait times are up to 22 hours. Loved ones lie in gurneys in hospital hallways for days. There's a 40% increase in people without a family doctor, a 50% increase in food bank use. Rent and housing prices are through the roof, and there's 80,000 people living homeless in Ontario in the bitter cold. This election, we can change that. And just like when I served as Pelham's mayor and regional council for 12 years, I'm on your side. I worked with the community to build the Meridian Community Center, to revitalize our parks and facilities, protect the Greenbelt and the Fawn Hill Came, and donate land to Wellspring Niagara. And I currently work to prevent human trafficking in Niagara. Marit Stiles and the NDP will hire more doctors and nurses. We'll fix healthcare, we'll build affordable homes, we'll fight rising costs, and defend Ontario jobs. You deserve better and someone you can trust. As your MPP, I'll listen to you, I'll work together with you, and I'll be on your side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Shauna, I'll let you take it away.
So I made the mistake of looking into the lights. Now I can't see. But anyways, I thought I would enjoy not being able to see you, but I'm not sure if I do. Anyways, so I am not a salesman, and essentially that's what politicians are, and I really have no agenda to sell you. A lot of people have told me that they don't know anything about me, so this is about me. I've lived in West Niagara for 30 years. I grew up on a farm outside of Smithville where I learned the value of hard work. I put myself through school at Niagara College where I graduated to go on to do a number of service jobs, searching for my purpose until I found fitness and realized it was helping others achieve their goals is what gave me purpose. My life hasn't always been easy. I wasn't always outspoken, but life put many hills in my way for me to climb. I've had to rely on the food bank to eat. My student loans went to collections. I survived a domestic abuse relationship that turned me into a voice for myself and wanting to be a voice for others. I want to give people an option for a representative who understands their struggles because I've lived them, to give a strong voice for those who are unheard and help make a difference so others don't have to face hardship experiences. That is why I'm part of Team Bonnie, who has a plan to address the real issues we are facing every single day, which is more for you.
Thank you very much. Mark.
Good evening. My name is Mark Harrison, and people don't really know much about me either. I don't know much about myself either. Anyway, so thank you also for the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on tonight. I've been fortunate enough to be a member of 3 Chamber of Commerces in different countries, and they've been very helpful to me when I've been setting up different businesses. I just want to elaborate on my life story. I came from England about 40 years ago, with just a few dollars in my back pocket, and then when I got to customs, they kicked me out of the country. Anyway, I can't really go into that now because then I'll get kicked out of here as well. Anyway, so I now live in Wainfleet. I have 3 grown children and a grandson. My wife has really long roots in the Lincoln area. They go back actually 7 generations. So when I need my farming tips, I go and talk to the farmers. They fill me in. A lot of people ask me, why on earth the Green Party? Now, to me, the Green Party is, I've gone for it because I feel the Conservatives have gone a bit, survival of the fittest, and I believe the Green Party has more the caring side. So for me, it fits both those aspects of what I'm looking for. And another little thing about the Conservatives, I'm finding they're now adding a lot of debt the whole time, like $88 billion in debt in 7 years. As a business owner, I always find this very hard to accept. I find that kind of the financing is to be a lot of sort of back of the napkin financing, and the Greens have a costed platform. Let's just move on to healthcare quickly, because I know that's a big concern for everyone. Everyone says we've got all these doctor shortages, which we have. I see the lights are going. So I reached out to the president of the Ontario Medical Association, and he told me exactly why doctors are leaving and why it's hard to attract doctors, and hope we can discuss this later this evening. Thank you very much.
Mark, thank you. And Sam, go ahead.
Well, thank you. And Mark, it's hard to follow up after that beautiful accent. So I could listen to you all evening. And also, I am colorblind, so I don't know if that changes anything with the lights, like if I get more time because of that. But it's a great privilege to be able to be here. And I'm grateful for the opportunity also to join the candidates who are here, and Samuel and the Chamber, thank you. And thank you to all who came out this evening. It is a cold evening, and it shows how much you care about democracy and also about strong representation here in Niagara West. And it is important to have strong representation, not just locally, but across the province, because Ontario is facing uncertain times. We've never lived in more uncertain times. We have the threat of tariffs coming from south of the border that would cost hundreds of thousands, up to 500,000 jobs across all of Ontario, and tens of thousands of jobs here in the Niagara region. So many here in Niagara are employed in sectors that are impacted by trade. We have greenhouses, we have the agricultural communities, we have auto parts manufacturing. We have seen investments coming back to this area after a long time of being ignored by the previous Liberal government. We've seen millions of investments coming into the businesses in the community. We've seen investments coming into our new West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, but all of that is at threat because of the tariff threat that is challenging not just our economy, but also the services that rely on a strong economy to be able to fund them. Only Doug Ford and the Ontario PCs have a plan to push back against that tariff threat and to keep our economy going. We've seen the uncertainty over the past few months, and we know that the next 4 years with President Trump at the helm of the United States will be like that as well, which is why we need stability, we need strong leadership, we need a serious government, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford and the Ontario PCs will deliver that for Niagara West and every corner of this province.
Sam, thank you. So we'll begin now with a selection of questions from the business community of West Niagara. Let me just make note, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the same question. If you need me to repeat the question, I'd be happy to do so. Just ask. With that being said, we're going to jump over to our first question here, starting with Shauna. I want to throw it over to you. How would you prioritize and allocate funding across key areas like healthcare, housing, education, and business support?
One more time.
How would you prioritize and allocate funding across key areas like healthcare, housing, education, and business support?
So essentially, I think you're asking me which one takes priority? Is that what you're asking me? Again, I'm telling you, I'm not a career politician. So I just want to make sure. So we're in a crisis right now, all across the board. I would prioritize our healthcare as being one of the most things that's important. A lot of people are talking about homelessness is caused by affordability, but it is also caused by our healthcare. There's a woman right now who is living in an abandoned apartment building with her 2 children because she lost her home, because she had to remortgage it and sell it to save her child's life. And that is not the kind of Ontario that I want to live in.
Okay. Mark, I want to throw that question over to you.
Say it one more time.
How would you prioritize and allocate funding across key areas like healthcare, housing, education, and business support?
Okay. Well, all 4 incredibly important, and I would have to really look at them first, have a look, see what the spending is, and as a business owner, I like to kind of see what the wastage in the system may be and how the funds are being allocated already before we go, yes, that place has got to have more money. So I'd kind of analyze it first and see what it needed from there.
Perfect. Okay. And now I want to throw it over to Sam.
Yeah, well, to invest in the services that are so important to our community, whether that's healthcare or education or social services, we need to have a strong economy, because ultimately it's not the government's money, it's not any of our money, it's the taxpayers of this province whose tax dollars are entrusted to the government to spend responsibly, to invest in healthcare, to invest in social services, and to support infrastructure projects as well, like widening the QEW, for example, our commitment to do that between St. Catharines and Burlington. So our focus has really been on growing the economic pie, ensuring that we have a stronger economy, because the best thing we can do is to ensure that people are able to bring home a good paying job, that they're able to bring home a big paycheck that keeps the roof over their head, that keeps food on the table, and that supports their family. And then also to be able to pay taxes so that we're able to invest in our services that are so crucial as well.
All right. And Dave, feel free.
Thanks so much for the question. When I first heard the question, it made me think about the time serving as mayor and regional councillor, where we had to work together with the community to listen to the community and to prioritize our budgets. And that's exactly what we did. This is a question of how we want to spend your money and how you want us to spend your money. And so I would start by listening. That's what we did when I chaired the region's $1 billion budget, and when I chaired the town's budget, we listened to folks. And we want to hear your priorities. Shauna's right. A priority that we keep hearing at the door is certainly healthcare, and how people think that the current government isn't spending money properly. They're not investing it, and they see their loved ones in hallways, and it's not being done properly. And we would also work with the business community, with the chambers of commerce, to set those budgets. And I think the key final thing is there are opportunities for innovation, and I would work with the community to do that.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, second question, and I'll speak a little bit slower. I know it's a long question for you guys to understand here. So how would you balance the needs of Niagara's agricultural industry, orchards, vineyards, and farmland with the demands of housing and industrial development? Mark, I'd like to throw it to you first.
Yeah, how I'd balance that, I'd be kind of like very rigid and strict on it, and I think all the development should stay in the urban boundaries. And then we'd have to look at creative ideas to stop it going into the farmland, because in Niagara West we have the best farmland of anywhere, and we've got to keep it for 7 generations. We've got to keep it for the future. And then one day people are going to say, wow, isn't it amazing? We're the only place that have farmland anymore, and we need to grow our own food more than ever before with the threat of tariffs and things like that.
Sam.
Born and raised on a family farm, I understand the importance of ensuring that we're protecting our farmland, but we also need to ensure that people are housed. I think all of us on the stage agree with the importance of ensuring that we're building more housing. At its core, it's supply and demand. We have, last year over 500,000 people moved to this province, and we didn't build enough units to meet those housing challenges. So we are going to have all kinds of housing. You look at whether it's high-intensity housing or single-family detached homes. We need all kinds of housing across this province in order to do that. And one of the ways we can do that is by tackling the red tape that we see at the municipal level, where we see delays and holdups to that process to get shovels in the ground. I was speaking with someone who is working on getting more housing built, and they said it's been almost 20 years to get some of the approvals from the municipal level, and we need to continue to push our municipal partners to do better and support services that will get more shovels in the ground to build more houses.
And Dave.
Thanks very much. It is a fine balance, and but I'm absolutely 100% committed, as I was in mayor and regional councillor, to preserving the Greenbelt and preserving our rich agricultural lands. It's sad that the current government has expanded those urban boundaries and forced municipalities with inflated numbers to say, oh, you really need to build all this housing. And those numbers were based on the previous numbers of all the foreign students coming in, so they really should be looked at again. Agriculture is extremely important as we face the threat of Trump's tariffs. Food security is going to be extremely important. We must preserve all of our farmland, and that's why it's sad, it's horrible that the government wants to pave over the Holland Marsh, and it wants to build McMansions there, or it's taking over 700 acres in Wilmot. We need to preserve our rich agricultural land, and we need to build in our urban areas and grow up instead of out.
Thank you, Dave. And Shauna, please.
Yeah, so again, I also grew up on a farm and realized the importance of agricultural land. Oh, by the way, Dave, thanks for agreeing with me on the earlier question. I really appreciate that. Sorry. So Sam, that kind of sounded like you were blaming the municipalities. I don't think that's fair. But when I went to our AGM with the Liberal Party, they actually have a plan with, her name is Jennifer Kismat. I don't know the exact lingo of it, but I feel what we need to do is look at all of the abandoned land and buildings that people are not using, and we need to restructure those before we just go to decide to build new stuff over the agricultural land. So I feel like we just need to start there, and they have a plan that, again, I wish I had have looked it up, I apologize, but if you look up Jennifer Kismat, she did a project in Toronto where they incorporate...
Sorry, Shauna, I have to cut you off here. Got to stick by the rules here. No, all good. So our third question here kind of comes back to housing. The housing availability and affordability crisis affects a wide range of stakeholders, including tenants, landlords, seniors, and first-time home buyers. What realistic and impactful solutions would your party prioritize to address this ongoing challenge? And Sam, I'd like to throw it to you to start.
Substantial number of different approaches that we've taken, and one of them is as of right homes, up to 3 as of right homes, and every single lot that's within a serviced urban boundary. So what that looks like is if you have a lot that has services and you're in the urban boundary, you can add a garden suite, you can add a basement apartment, and you don't have to go through some of the red tape that you would have had to previously. And it also includes providing support to municipalities to get water and wastewater services, which is millions of dollars. You know, I announced last year millions of dollars for water and wastewater servicing in Lincoln. That takes that off of the burden of municipal taxpayers, so it stops property taxes from having to go up to provide those services and ensures that you're able to get shovels in the ground on those sites. That was the Prudhoe site just down the road, and we know that that's the kind of development that will get more homes, thousands of more homes for people across this province.
Thank you. And Dave, let's throw it over to you.
Thanks so much. It's a big question to answer in a minute, the housing crisis, that folks are worried about their kids, their grandkids getting housing. They're worried about the rent that they're paying and the interest rates that they're paying. And sadly, the government has failed in this situation. They have the lowest number of new home construction since 1955, and yet all they keep talking about is housing. I think I'm the only one on stage that was actually, and there's a number of councillors here that are involved in this, but I'm the only one on stage that actually got housing built, especially in the Fonthill area. And we did that because we worked very, very diligently to get those plans approved, to get the servicing that was required, and to work together with the community to plan it. I'm committed to that. And the NDP will put together a Homes Ontario program providing grants for low and non-market housing, get back in the business of building co-op housing and preferring apartments, and legalize fourplexes, and at the end of the day, build or acquire at least 1.5 million homes.
Thank you, Dave. Up next, Shauna.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure.
The housing availability and affordability crisis affects a wide range of stakeholders, including tenants, landlords, seniors, and first-time home buyers. What realistic and impactful solutions would your party prioritize to address this ongoing challenge?
With Team Bonnie, we will slash the tax on new homes, eliminate the land transfer tax for first-time buyers, for seniors that are downsizing, and nonprofit builders. Scrap development charges on new middle-class housing, which can add up to $170,000 on a new home. Making rent more affordable, phase in rent control, resolving landlord-tenant board disputes within 2 months, because they really do take longer than that, like a long time. Mine was like 2 years. Establishing the rental emergency support for tenants fund to help vulnerable renters avoid eviction during financial crisis.
Perfect. And Mark, finish it off.
Yeah, so a couple of things here. I think one, I've heard about builders not being able to build because of it's very hard to get the approvals and things like that, so we need to speed that up. And then when we get that land sped up, I've often wondered why we can't have like modular homes. We build, cars haven't been built by hand forever, so we'd be able to have modular homes that be built in a factory. They're already approved for everything you need for the electrics, and they can be built first-time homeowners can buy them at, say, $250,000. You've got them for seniors who are moving from bigger houses, want to smaller houses, and then you can have a different type who can get people out of the shelters and into a small little home, gets them off the streets and into having a home and an address for themselves.
Perfect. Okay. And on to question 4. I'll start with Dave. I'll read out the question here. How will you ensure Ontario's education system is properly funded and aligned with workforce needs, so students in Niagara graduate with the skills and training required to fill in-demand jobs, support local industries, and drive economic growth?
Thanks very much. Stronger schools are extremely important to our future, and especially as we're, students finding jobs, starting businesses, contributing to a resilient, more tariff-proof Ontario. Unfortunately, we have, under this government, we have overcrowded classrooms and less support for children, especially following the pandemic. And they really, I hate to say it this way, but they really fought a war against education workers. I was talking to the medical officer of health for Niagara Region today, and he says that schools are crowded everywhere and there's an increased birth rate, and really a government should be looking at those rates and trying to work together with folks. So Marit Stiles and the Ontario NDP and I will fix schools. We'll make sure that our schools' repair backlog is fixed. We'll hire the staff that we need and correct the school sizes.
Thank you, Dave. I have to cut you off here. Okay, we're going to throw it over to Shauna.
Again, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question just because it's very long.
How will you ensure Ontario's education system is properly funded and aligned with workforce needs, so students in Niagara graduate with the skills and training required to fill in-demand jobs, support local industries, and drive economic growth? Your minute starts now.
So properly funded, I think we have to go to stopping Doug Ford spending billions and billions of our taxpayers' dollars on his family and friends and his pets' projects, and reallocating that to, again, the things that are most important, like healthcare and education. When I went to school, I couldn't pay my students' student loans, and they ended up going into collections, and that's why I support helping graduates by eliminating the interest on their OSAP loans, delaying repayment until a graduate secures $50,000 a year, and fund colleges and universities fairly to avoid being dependent on international student enrollment.
Okay. And Mark, go ahead.
Repeat the question.
No problem. I know it's long. How will you ensure Ontario's education system is properly funded and aligned with workforce needs, so students in Niagara graduate with the skills and training required to fill in-demand jobs, support local industries, and drive economic growth?
I have to sort of travel back into my time growing up in England, where at 16, people would be, if they weren't going to be academic, they were put into trade schools. So you'd have all the different trade schools available for industry. You'd have your plumbers, electricians, and chefs, and medical, everything that you needed like that. And I don't obviously quite understand how the funding would relate to that, but that's the way forward, because so many people aren't just into academic studies.
Okay, and Sam.
Yeah, so first of all, we have to remember that the Liberals closed 600 schools, predominantly in rural communities, when they were in office, propped up by the NDP for those 15 years. We're actually building new schools, including new schools in Niagara West. But it's not just about building new schools and hiring more teachers, although we are doing that. It's also about getting back to the basics and ensuring that we're respecting parents' voices in their education system, and also ensuring that kids are being taught how to think, not what to think, and providing options for them about their career paths. And that's one of the big emphasis that we've had is on apprenticeships, refocusing skilled trades opportunities for people, and ensuring that we're bringing things like the math proficiency tests, so that we're teaching to a standard that every single educator in this province is able to meet that level of expectation, and ensure that students are receiving the education they deserve to be able to go out and not just prepare for the jobs today, but also for the jobs tomorrow and next year and into the future.
And our last question, I'm going to begin with Shauna here. If the newly elected Premier of Ontario selected you to be in cabinet, which ministry would you like to lead and why?
Ooh, that sounds fun. I don't know. I think I would do the Ministry of Education, honestly, because I feel like we could make so many improvements and add so many realistic, I don't want to say courses, but courses to teach people how to live everyday life and deal with things like anxiety and, less about algebra. Not that you don't need it. I'm sure there's some jobs that really need algebra, sorry about that. But I think that that's what I would do, because I feel like we could teach our youth so many more valuable skills other than just the major ones.
Thank you. And Mark, I'm going to throw the question to you.
Yeah, I'd like two. But the first one I'll reject, but I'd like to be the Minister of the Finance, because I'm just dying to see where all the money goes to. I think so much is wasted. It drives me crazy. But then because I'm retired now, I've got a passion for the environment, and I will take over the environment, because I want to have clean air. When, a generation ago, you'd only have like one kid in the class with a puffer. Now it's like 1 in 4 kids have a puffer. We've got to look after the air, the soil, the rivers. And it's not so important these days with all the other issues going on. But we just got to keep a focus on this and think of our children and grandchildren and going forward like that. And then they will thank us for looking after the environment.
And Sam.
Well, I'll say that the first and most important job I have at Queen's Park is, of course, would be to represent the people of Niagara West, and that would be my first priority, and whatever additional responsibilities, if the Premier chose to put additional responsibilities in a cabinet position, I would serve wherever he put me, but at the same time, I would always remember my first priority and my first responsibilities to the people in this room and in this community.
And Dave.
Thanks very much. That's exactly what I was going to say. That obviously, I think the importance is serving you. The importance is working together with you. And one of the things that I would love to do, and I don't think the ministry exists, and that is a ministry of innovation. I think our government, in all the sectors and all the areas, really needs to innovate, to work on creative solutions. We did that in our community, and we were able to, for example, keep our taxes below the rate of inflation for the entire 12 years that I was mayor. And I think we can do that in the province. We can work together with important partners across the province. We can work together with you, and we can solve these problems. They're not unsurmountable, but if we can, I know a process that we use, and I think we can do it. That's what I'd like to do.
Thank you, Dave. And that wraps up our questions from the West Niagara business. now it's time for us to have a little bit of fun. So I'm going to go over some of the rules over this next section here. Each candidate will be provided the opportunity to ask one other candidate one question. Please identify which candidate you are directing your question towards first, and then you will have 30 seconds to pose your question. And 30 seconds, no more. Please ensure that you ask your question within the 30 seconds, or I will have to cut you off, and whatever you have said is what the candidate will be answering. The candidate to whom the question is directed to will have exactly 1 minute to respond. So, with that being said, Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you. Which candidate would you like to ask a question? You have 30 seconds.
This fine gentleman on my left. There we go. My question is, why is the Conservative government planning to build new nuclear power plants? 2 points really is, one, they always go over budget, and Ontario Hydro nearly went bankrupt before, and also, more importantly, what do we do with the waste? It's been sitting there for 50 years, these fuel rods, and I know there's talk about burying them in deep inside the rocks, but no municipality wouldn't want them, and we wouldn't want them here. So I'm just wondering how you would answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, the Independent Electrical Systems Operator has said that there's going to be a 75% increase in the demand of electricity over the next 25 years in Ontario. That's almost doubling the entire electricity grid. To build enough wind turbines or solar panels just to power the city of Toronto would cover the equivalent of the entire GTHA. We need nuclear power because it's affordable, it's reliable, it's non-emitting, and it ensures that we have a stable backbone of power to our entire grid. Also, the byproduct, exactly, you're right, it's a deep geologic repository. Way up in northern Ontario, they will dig a tunnel a couple of kilometers down into the rock, build a very, very secure basin. They're actually working on that. It's the federal government that's responsible for the nuclear waste, and they will bury that. So it's safe, we have the expertise here, it provides tens of thousands of good jobs.
Okay, so Sam, I'm going to allow you to pose who you would like to ask the question to, and then you have 30 seconds to go ahead.
Thank you. My question is to Shauna. Shauna.
Ask you a question?
We'll see. Shauna, in 2007, the Liberals committed to building the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital, then they canceled it. In 2011, they committed to building it again, and in the 2012 budget, they canceled it with the support of the NDP. Why did the Liberal government, when they were in power, cancel the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital not once, but twice?
Well, that is a great question. And I would not presume to know the exact answer. However, what I do know is I would not continuously blame the past government for everything that is wrong right now. And I will, when I get elected, I will be responsible and take accountability for everything that I and my party has done. And that hospital was in the works way, way, way before you came along, no offense. I even was at a rally and went to doctors talking about it and bought fundraising tickets, so I appreciate that you can take the credit for it, but what about funding it and staffing it?
Okay, I'm going to ask that you keep the applause to a minimum, please. Thanks. Dave, go ahead. Direct question. You have 30 seconds.
Thanks very much. My question is to the PC candidate. When I talk to folks on the door through the riding, even tonight, people talk about what's going on with the government, and people are waiting in the ER for up to 22 hours. There's 2,000 people across the province right now lying in hospital hallways, not getting the care they need. 40% increase in families without a doctor, 50% increase in food bank use, 80,000 people unhoused and in the bitter cold. And folks out there say that these are not the values of the good people of West Niagara, and you could have done something and didn't. My question is, how does your government neglect and heartlessness match the values of the people of goodwill here in West Niagara?
Thank you. And healthcare is an extremely important aspect of the provincial government. It's why we've added 2 new medical schools, the first medical schools in the 21st century, one in Brampton, one in Scarborough, to get more doctors trained. It's why we're building 2 new hospitals in the Niagara region, adding 6 long-term care homes, adding 24 palliative care beds, adding 29 MRIs across the province right now. It's why we've more than doubled the nursing school at Brock University. There were 370 nursing spots there in 2018. There's over 800 now. But those things do take time to begin to turn out those people that are being trained in those new facilities. And so that's happening. But I would say also that when the Liberals were in power, they cut the physician training positions by over 50 spots a year. There would be over 800 additional doctors that we would have had if they'd been there, and that was when the NDP supported them through their minority years. So I think that there's a lot of work that we're underway, and I could look forward to seeing that come to fruition.
Okay, and Shauna, go ahead. Who would you like to direct your question to? And you have 30 seconds.
I am not going to ask anybody a question.
Are you sure?
I'm totally sure.
Okay, we're going to skip to that, and then we'll go to the publicly submitted questions. So, as we move on to that, if your question does not get asked, I'd like to remind you that you will have the opportunity to speak to any one of the candidates at their table just at the back there after this is over. Candidates, you will have 1 minute to respond to these questions. I'm going to ask the question, and similarly, each of you are going to be able to respond to the same question. I have 5 right here. Answers will be timed, and again, when you're at 15 seconds, you'll see a yellow light, and then you'll see a red light when you're supposed to stop. So, without further ado, we're going to start with Sam. And the first question I have here is this. Ontario is facing a shortage of doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals, which is affecting access to care. With that specific policy or initiatives, do you propose to attract and retain more healthcare workers in the province, and what can be done to improve the working conditions? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, one of the programs that we're bringing forward, and I think I spoke about, adding new medical schools and doubling the nursing training spots. One of them is actually called the Learn and Stay Grant. So it pays for the tuition for nurses, nurse practitioners, family doctors who commit to practicing here in Ontario. Their entire tuition, their textbooks, everything that their expenses are in school, but they have to stay here and practice. The other thing that we've done is we've worked with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario to streamline and expedite the amount of time it takes for an internationally educated doctor to actually begin to practice. We would hear stories of those who are physicians overseas, they came here and they were driving a cab. So we've been working to make sure that that timeline is cut down by removing some of the Canadian work experience requirements, which were kind of ridiculous if you think about it. You had to have Canadian work experience to get Canadian work experience. It didn't make sense. And we're bringing more of those as well from other provinces by removing some of the requirements that they would have to have a waiting period. They can practice the next day. You move here as a doctor on a Friday, you can start practicing on, I was going to say the Monday, but on the Saturday.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, and up next, Dave, would you like me to repeat the question?
Thank you.
Ontario is facing a shortage of doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals, which is affecting access to care. What specific policies or initiatives do you propose to attract and retain more healthcare workers in the province, and what can be done to improve the working conditions? Your minute starts now.
Thanks so much. Thanks for repeating the question. So many people talk to me about healthcare, and that's why I asked that question earlier, although it was a values-based question. And I think of Tammy and her mother, who had no family doctor and just was going to the walk-in clinic, and they were treating her symptoms, and they didn't know that her underlying condition was cancer, and she passed away. And so what we have is a system here where that the Liberal government, previous Liberal government, broke healthcare, and the PC government has put it on life support. So they can talk a great game, but that's not what you're seeing, and that's not what people are telling me about at the doors. What would we do? We would work with the Ontario Medical Association that talks about things like doctors are doing 20% of their time is paperwork. We're going to work together with them and reduce that and recruit 3,500 new doctors. We're going to work together with the Nursing Association, who said that we can hire 15,000 nurses if we work together with them. We'll do that. We'll clear a path to train 13,000.
Thank you, Dave. I have to cut you off here, and we're going to jump over to Shauna. Shauna, go ahead. Your minute starts now.
So I'm lucky enough to be a member of a family health team where I can get a same-day appointment, and I would absolutely feel so awful and not know what to do if I wasn't a lucky one. So with Team Bonnie, her plan is to pay all nurses and PSWs a living wage so we can train and retrain the support our system needs to provide care. Expand the existing medical schools that only train 20 doctors right now and build 2 new medical schools. And instead of fighting our healthcare workers in court over unconstitutional wage freezes, we will fight to keep nurses, PSWs, and other healthcare workers in our public system.
Shauna. And Mark.
I wanted to find out why so many doctors are leaving and why, I spoke to Dr. Novak he's the president of the Ontario Medical Association, trying to help me understand this. And he was saying the people don't want to be a doctor anymore like they used to in the old day. They don't want to go home and spend time doing chart work, and there's an aging population that they've got to spend more time with, and they're still having to use fax machines. So that some of the solutions he quickly told me about is trying to use AI as a thing called AI Scribe, that they can listen in on you. The scribe is doing the thing, so it saves the doctor having to write up everything. There'll be centralized referral systems, so you get an appointment straight away. Prescriptions, you wouldn't have that little chit, it would do it for you. You'd be able to go straight to the pharmacy when it's ready, and many other innovations there that he mentioned as well. Didn't have time to go through them all.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. And on to the second question here. We're going to start with Dave. I'm going to throw it over to you. Municipalities are facing rising costs as more services are downloaded to them. How would your party update funding models to reduce the need for constant property tax increases?
Hello?
You're good.
Thanks very much for the question. This is kind of in my wheelhouse, and I alluded to it earlier. Absolutely, the government continues to download things and not pay for things that are covered by your property taxes. It started a long time ago with conservative Mike Harris, and you know that, a downloading of services. And that, what does that mean? It means that it's now covered, that used to be covered provincially, is now covered by your property taxes. And that's not fair. An NDP government will start working to upload those items. What will that do? That will help make your life more affordable and help renters and homeowners make their lives more affordable by reducing or giving some room for municipalities to reduce their taxes. Things like ambulance service, things like all kinds of things, roads, all these different things are handled by the municipal taxpayer that used to be handled by the province, and we'll make sure those get up.
Thank you. And to the next, Shauna.
I'm going to get you to repeat it, sorry.
Municipalities are facing rising costs as more services are downloaded to them. How would your party update funding models to reduce the need for constant property tax increases? Your minute starts now.
This is a great question, and I just had a conversation last night with Sandra Easton, who sort of enlightened me on how those things work. And her suggestion was that the MPP and the municipalities need to go to AMO and restructure and discuss how to make that more viable.
Okay. And Mark.
That's what I would do.
I'm going to throw it over to you, Mark.
Well, with the snap election coming so quickly, and I don't have the experience to make a sound judgment on what should happen, but I'm sure Mike Schreiner has it all in his costed platform, which is all available to see online.
Thank you. And Sam, to finish it off.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, really appreciate the relationship with local mayors and councillors and the ability to speak about the local needs and be able to bring those to Queen's Park. It's been something that we've been able to deliver on local priorities. Town of Grimsby, for example, brought forward the Peach King Centre, was able to go advocate with them and secure $16 million for that site. Again, the water and wastewater services, over $20 million for the Prudhoe site. Supports also for infrastructure upgrades, new bridges and things like that in West Lincoln. This is what it looks like when a government recognizes that the world doesn't end at the Burlington Skyway. And for a long time, Niagara was ignored We didn't see investment dollars flowing into this region, but I can tell you, the Premier calls all the time and says, what's happening in Niagara? What does Niagara need? And we talk about the investments that have to come into this area, and he listens and responds, and we've been able to see a lot coming into the Niagara region as a result of that. And there's more to come. Again, whether that's upgrading Grimsby Go, building out a station there, or of course, widening the QEW and continuing to support our municipal partners.
Thank you. And on to our third question here. Traffic congestion is a growing issue in our communities, not just on highways, but within our towns. Traffic and transportation are shared responsibilities between municipal, provincial, and federal governments. What will your party do to support local transportation infrastructure and ease congestion? Shauna, I'd like to throw this one to you. You have 1 minute to answer the question. Thank you.
Team Bonnie is committed to bringing the GO station to Grimsby and actually making it happen to ease the traffic going back and forth. Again, I only just learned about the expansion, that Sam was talking about, of the QEW and the bridge and everything, so I do not know a lot about that. I do know that a lot of people that I've been talking to would really love the GO train coming to Grimsby, well, and obviously onto Niagara Falls, but mostly Grimsby. And then they are concerned about local transportation, especially up where we live on the hill and being able to get down the mountain.
Thank you. And Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you next.
It's a bit out of my wheelhouse again, but obviously I would encourage as much public transport as possible. That's what I can comment on.
Thank you. And Sam, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an issue I believe that really does illustrate a big difference between the PCs and the leadership of Premier Ford and the other parties. The other parties, they kind of have this ideological opposition to expanding roads or creating roads. It's almost like if it cuts down a dandelion, they won't let it get built. We have a plan to build more highways, to widen highways. Again, we talked about widening the QEW between St. Catharines and Burlington, as well as building the Grimsby GO station, and also continue to expand services in the public transportation space. Right now, we have the largest transit expansion in North America's history with the Ontario line, new subways going in throughout the GTHA, and continuing to support municipalities with funding as well to keep our existing roads also in good condition.
Thank you, Sam. And Dave, throw it over to you.
Thanks very much. It's interesting. I look back on the notes that I had from the previous debate, and at that time, the PC candidate said, "I'm 100% in favor of the GO station. It's going to happen. Count on it." Well, we know what happened there. It isn't being done. It hasn't been done. It was just sort of a last-minute announcement where they said that it's going to proceed. We are 100% committed to it. It will get done in these 4 years of this election if I'm your member. And we will also take cars, or we allow cars to go on the 407, immediately allow trucks to go on it, and then also upload or take over the 407 to ease traffic. We will support the expansion of the QEW, although it's too bad that this government has let it get to this situation where we're going to have to go through construction and all those different types of things. And again, we will work with local municipalities. I know how important those one-third, one-third, one-third programs were when I was mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. And our fourth question over here regarding landlord and tenant boards. The landlord and tenant board delays have made it nearly impossible to evict tenants who don't pay rent or disrupt others, with cases often taking a year or more. What will your party do to fix those delays and ensure a fair, timely process for landlords and tenants? Mark, I'd like to throw this one to you. You have 1 minute to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously seems to be a backlog in the tenant board, or whatever it's called, where people have to, well, I mean, there's obviously, trying to get this right, as a landlord, I actually have been a landlord once, and it's a big fear if you get a tenant and you can't get rid of them. So it does put people off. So I think, just trying to think how that is. But I think there obviously needs to be a lot more people in the tenant board to get rid of the backlog that's building up.
Thank you, Mark. And I'd like to throw it over to Sam.
Yeah, So a delay that was in place a year or even 2 years ago was completely unacceptable. Wait times and getting in front of the tribunal was far too long, and we doubled the amount of adjudicators, so that time has come down drastically. It's now a few months. We need to get it less. It needs to be at around that 30 to 60 day mark, and we're going to get there by I believe about this spring, summer, as those adjudicators work through that backlog, but it's already been cut drastically compared to the timeline that it was, because it was unacceptably long.
Thank you. And I'd like to throw it over to Dave. Go ahead.
Thanks so much. I talk to so many folks that want to put an apartment in their house, and the NDP will support you in doing that. Or they want to have these things that Mark's talking about on their lawn, but they're worried. They're worried about renting, and this is absolutely something that they're worried about. They get a tenant and they can't go to the board. So it is neglect, really, of the government that allowed this to get to the point where it was 2 years that people had to wait to deal with tenant issues, and even tenants with landlord issues. So we will fill the board, we'll get rid of the backlog and move it very, very quickly to make it, because this is a piece of the housing crisis that often isn't seen, and it stops people from building the housing that we need. So we are committed to this, and we're also committed to bringing back rent controls once that board is in place, so that we can ensure that renters are also taken care of.
Thank you, Dave. And Shauna, to finish it off, go ahead.
So I am familiar with the Landlord Tenant Board. As I said earlier, it took 2 years for them to resolve my issue. So I am familiar with that. What I'm not familiar with is why it is taking them so long. Is it they don't have enough staff? Is it something that the government is doing to hold them back? So that is where I'm not familiar with. I do know that Team Bonnie, it is part of her plan to get those issues resolved within 2 months, and again, phase in the rent control.
Thank you, Shauna. I appreciate it. Okay, my last question here on this section is to Sam to begin. Development charges are being discussed for potential removal. If they are eliminated, how would your party ensure municipalities still have the funding needed for infrastructure and services?
So the Premier obviously has a background in municipal politics, and one of the things he tells us all the time is the importance of speaking with local councillors, local mayors, and hearing what their needs are, because they're on the ground. And as a result of that, we brought forward funds like the Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. That funds, again, water and wastewater systems, a huge cost that is carried or would be carried otherwise in development charges and in municipal property taxes. You know, it's not one of those things that maybe we think about all the time, but when you're building out a new subdivision and you're adding more housing, there's a huge amount of costs provided there as well. Another area that we've increased support is the Homelessness Prevention Program funding, an 86% support increase brought in last year through that fund, going directly to municipalities, going from 11 million in Niagara to over $20 million to alleviate the local housing challenges and to continue to build out more housing also for those who are the most vulnerable in society and need that support.
Thank you. And Dave, throw it over to you.
Thanks very much. Development charges is kind of one of those odd things that maybe the average person doesn't understand. I chaired the region's development charge committee twice, and also worked at the town to do that as mayor. And really what it works is trying to say that we're going to be doing these various projects to enable growth to happen in a community. The projects are listed, they're costed, and it's so that growth pays for growth, and so that local residents don't necessarily pay for those growth-related charges that aren't related to their community improving. It is a fine balance, and sadly some municipalities, like the city of Mississauga, for instance, increased them sky high and didn't balance them properly. We tried to meet that balance at the region. I don't know what's happened recently. Some of the councillors are here, but it is a fine balance, and it does impact housing prices. So if those are lifted, I think the uploading of provincial responsibility on municipal services will certainly help pay for that.
Thank you. And Shauna, on to you.
I'm going to get you to repeat the question, Sam.
Development charges are being discussed for potential removal. If they are eliminated, how would your party ensure municipalities still have the funding needed for infrastructure and services?
So it's really about spending our dollars on the right things. And for the past 7 years, Doug Ford has been spending your money on the wrong things. So I believe once we stop the billions and billions of tax dollars being spent on Mr. Ford's family and friends and his little pet projects, that we should be able to accommodate municipalities for removing those development charges.
Okay, and Mark.
I'll have to ask for a repeat of that as well.
Development charges are being discussed for potential removal. If they are eliminated, how would your party ensure municipalities still have the funding needed for infrastructure and services?
Well, why are they being discussed to be eliminated, I guess would be my question. And I would stop that happening, I guess, with the Green Party. I'd have to check into their policy on that.
Okay, thank you. We're going to throw it. We have 2 more questions here. We're going to start with Dave. Businesses in our community are struggling with rise in break-ins. How will you, or what will you do at a provincial level to support crime prevention, policing, and business recovery?
Sorry, I missed it. The mic kept...
No problem. Businesses in our community are struggling with rise in break-ins. What will you do at a provincial level to support crime prevention, policing, and business recovery?
Okay, thanks very much. I think it's, this is something that, as a member of the Chamber of Commerce myself and the Welland Pelham Chamber and a director there, this is something that small business owners are quite concerned about, for sure. And when we look at it and we survey members, it is something that they want their government to do, and sadly the government hasn't been acting on this. It's important to look at the reason for crime as well, and that because so many people are hurting in our society, they do turn to crime, which is very sad. And it's important that we work with the community. I think the community policing programs that was canceled locally at the region is an important thing to bring back, to get officers on the street, working in the downtowns, working with folks, going in the Penn Center, for instance, and showing that presence, and also highlighting where folks are coming from and seeing them and working together with them. Thank you.
And Shauna.
Yeah, Dave, I think you're onto something there with a stronger economy and less people having to resort to crime is a good place to start. However, I also think that we should increase policing, especially in our area where we're from. I think we only have maybe 1 or 2. It might be better, those are old statistics, but 1 or 2 active police officers in our area. So we definitely have to look at it and figure it out.
And Mark.
I hope it sort of comes down to the economy, really, and young people having jobs and knowing that they have a future that they can focus on, and hopefully they won't get into crime. And then once they do, you need to have the support services to wrap around them before they maybe get incarcerated and get down that wrong path for the rest of their lives.
And Sam.
Well, I can tell you one thing we're not going to do. We've heard some Liberal and NDP candidates across the province say that they wanted to defund the police. We're not going to defund the police. We're going to continue supporting them, and we're going to lead the charge, as we have, on bail reform with the federal government. Bail reform is one of the biggest challenges that we have, where you have repeat offenders who go in, who commit crimes, violent crimes in some cases, and they go and they're thrown back out on the street within a matter of days, if not in some cases hours. I was speaking with a police officer who had a situation where they took someone in on I think it was a Tuesday night, and by Thursday they saw them again after a violent attack. I mean, this is unacceptable. So we're calling on the feds to fix bail reform, fix the bail system, and also we're building more jails, because we don't want to have people who are sent out because there isn't space for them and they're back on the street reoffending in a matter of, hours, if not days.
Thank you. And our final question, before closing remarks, I'm going to throw this one to Shauna first. Top of the mind for most voters in Ontario right now is the promised and potential tariff situation within the United States. What actions would your party support and advocate for to bolster our local economy and reduce the economic impact of tariffs on taxpayers here at home. You have 1 minute.
So because I only have 1 minute, I'm not going to go into the 8-part plan that Bonnie has. What I will tell you is that it's going to take a coordinated response if we're going to fight back against Trump. We don't want a bully negotiating with a bully. If the people of Ontario can't count on public health care, don't have access to a family doctor, can't find an affordable place to live and deal with rising costs of living and groceries, then it makes our ability to fight against Trump's tariffs much harder.
And Mark.
Sorry, can you ask me one more time on that?
Absolutely. Top of mind for most voters in Ontario right now is the promised and potential tariff situation within the United States. What actions would your party support and advocate for to bolster our economic or local economy and reduce the economic impact of tariffs on taxpayers here at home?
Wow, that's a big question, isn't it? I think we just had to be, I think we had to be very careful not to be reactionary and say, well, we're going to put tariffs on as well. Otherwise, you get into this tariff war. I mean, supporting local businesses is absolutely vital to it as well. And also, may sound strange to the business guy, I think this might unleash the potential of Canadian businesses because they're kind of being too reliant on the US, and now they're going to become more entrepreneurial and they'll say, wow, this is incredible. And they can explore new ideas and new markets and new jobs and maybe open their own businesses. And they'll say, why did I ever work in that factory before? And they'll be, much more enriched in their lives.
Thank you, Mark. And Sam.
We will do whatever is necessary to protect people's livelihoods. We will spend, if necessary, billions of dollars to provide income support to businesses and impacted workers, retooling opportunities, retraining opportunities, investing more than we ever have before in infrastructure so that we're able to keep jobs here locally, build out our schools, our hospitals, our highways, our bridges, and we are taking the fight to Trump. I mean, we are, the Premier was in Washington last week sending the message that, listen, you may be starting this fight, but we're going to end it. We have a lot of tools at our disposal. They need our critical minerals. They need our energy. We keep the lights on for 1.5 million Americans every day. We're going to use every single tool in our toolbox here in Ontario to push back against that tariff threat and make sure that we support workers and businesses, because I'm telling you, 500,000 people, their jobs depend on that, and that keeps so much else going in the entire province, in the entire area, also right here in the Niagara region. It's absolutely crucial.
Thank you, Sam. And Dave, go ahead.
Thanks so much. Yeah, many people are very anxious about this, and they said, I was having a conversation out there today saying that we feel vulnerable in Ontario because of the situation that the PC government has put us in. One thing we wouldn't do is we wouldn't have Doug Ford negotiate a deal. Because if we look at the deals that he's done with the Therme Spa, with the Greenbelt, with the beer store boondoggle, with the overpriced Starlink, he doesn't know how to negotiate. He always puts us second. Even calling this election at a time when we should be coming together and making it political and forcing you to come out here in the cold winter doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, thank you. We will keep your best interests in mind. We will tariff-proof the province. We will work together with industry and labor leaders and with the agricultural community. We will work with the federal government so that there is income assistance if it's required. And just as we did when I was served on regional council during the last economic crisis, we will spend and invest on infrastructure that pays dividends in the future and ensure that we get people working.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. And now we're going to jump into our closing remarks. That about wraps up the night. So we're going to give the candidates an opportunity going reverse alphabetically by last name for right to left. Each candidate will have 1 minute to give his or her closing remarks. 1 minute. And like I said, you have 15 seconds left with the yellow light and red when it's time to stop. So Sam, I'm going to allow you to begin and we'll go down the row.
On the vein of that last question, we know that hundreds of thousands of jobs are at risk across Ontario, and those jobs aren't just numbers, they're not statistics, they're people who are able to put food on their table, put a roof over their head, to care for their families, and we are here to protect those jobs, also because the people who work those jobs are the ones who pay the taxes that keep so many of the services that we rely on. They are the taxes that we invest into healthcare, invest into education, that we're able to build up our infrastructure. So we have a plan, a robust plan, the only plan in this province province. That is a commitment to build and support the province and also the workers in this province, but we need a mandate from the people. We've seen the instability over the past 3 months coming from south of the border. We know that the next 3.5, 4 years are going to be like that, so we need a strong mandate that can outlast Donald Trump and ensure we're able to provide security to the people of this province and protect Ontario.
Thank you. And I'm going to jump over to Mark.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I went to the Green Party in the first place is to try and get more of a balance between business and caring, because it can't all be business, otherwise everyone gets left behind, and then you have people sleeping out on the streets. If I go running in the trails, I see encampments now I never used to. There's garbage everywhere. People can't afford homes. We're going to have a generation of lost people who are never going to have a house in a whole generation. And so that's why I need that balance between the two, which I feel the Green Party has. And also, I have to say, I know it's not very trendy now, but my love of the environment, the air, the water, the fields, the trees, we all need that more than ever, and we mustn't lose that in everything else that's going on in our lives.
Thank you, Mark. And I'd like to throw it over to Shauna.
Yeah, so I don't know why the Ford government needed a mandate for this and not for every other service that they've taken away from you, but just a sidebar. How can a career politician or the rich in this election understand what you need, looking down on you from their ivory towers? The people that are saying that Ford and his conservatives are the best for the job are the ones who haven't suffered or needed any of the services they are taking away. I'm asking for your vote for someone who actually understands you, who's been where you are, and who will never stop fighting for the nice things you deserve, that your tax dollars are supposed to pay for. Ask yourself, what do you have to lose that you haven't lost already? Enough is enough, and what about us?
Thank you, Shauna. And I'm going to throw it over to Dave for the final closing remark.
Thanks so much, Samuel, and the West Niagara Chambers for hosting tonight, fellow candidates, and for you watching and attending. I'm excited to roll up my sleeves and to work together with you to improve our community. Together, we can ensure that Ontario becomes a place full of opportunity with a government on your side. And an Ontario NDP government will work together with you to defend Ontario jobs, to fight rising costs, to build affordable homes, to hire doctors and nurses, and to invest and fix healthcare. This election is about you, and you deserve a proven leader that you can trust. As your MPP, I promise that I will fight for you, always put you first, listen to you, work together with you, and always be on your side. And so on February 27th, vote for a proven leader who's on your side, Dave Augustyn for Niagara West, and Marit Stiles for a government that you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And can we give a round of applause to all of the candidates as a thank you for showing up? And just a reminder for those that don't know, Election Day is February 27th, quickly approaching. Polls open at 9 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. We encourage you to take some time out of your day and hit the polls. Reminder that you are invited to remain and speak to the candidates. They will be at their respective tables outside in the lobby, so feel free to speak with them. And on behalf of the Lincoln, Grimsby, and West Lincoln Chambers of Commerce, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful night and enjoy. Cheers.